First step we'll take today is to make an attempt at reviewing Microsoft's lifecycle policy when it comes to Dynamics GP. If you don't know what lifecycle policy is, it's basically Microsoft providing a timeline on how long they plan to support and service a product whenever it launches, in this case GP. Typically this is up to 10 years of support that you can plan for, minimum of 5 years mainstream support, and then there's a lot of times an optional or an additional extended support that's oftentimes 5 years. It's not always offered, but in the case of GP, it is a 10-year cycle. So the legacy GP products are on what's called a fixed support lifecycle policy. And basically that means the timeline is very well defined. And when we talk about the different types of the ways that Microsoft supports us with this lifecycle, it's things like in mainstream support, the opportunity to reach out to Microsoft, talk to them about new features that the product should have, change the product design. It's an opportunity for you to weigh in as a customer and partners to weigh in on things to make the product better. That ends after the first 5 years of mainstream support. Don't have that option anymore. Other things like security updates, very important, and that's covered both through mainstream support and extended support, and sometimes beyond. There are also things like non-security updates, things like updating tax tables from year to year. That's typically mainstream support for the first 5 years and not available afterwards, leaving customers in a situation where if they want to stay on that product version, they might need to maintain things themselves going forward that were typically provided as part of being on an enhancement plan in the past. Options like self-help support and knowledge bases, tools like customer source are available for customers on plan through all of these different phases in the lifecycle policy. And paid support is typically available for quite a long time until Microsoft reaches the point where they don't provide technical support for a product anymore, and they'll notify customers about that. In the case of Dynamics GP, we can go back about 15 years for the lifecycle policy of the different versions, starting way back with GP10 in the year 2007, then moving into GP 2010, version 2013, 2015, 2016, and 2018 throughout the years. Each one had an R1 and an R2 start date, so release 1, release 2. So the clock started ticking with R1. And as you can see on this in this table, all of these legacy versions have reached the end of mainstream support, including Dynamics GP 2018, which hit that mark in January of 2023. Some of the products, GP10, 2010, and 2013 are no longer covered by any kind of support through this lifecycle policy. And then versions like GP 2015, 2016, and 2018 are in what's called extended support for the next 2 to 5 years. So this gives you some time to figure out what do we want to do with GP going forward. There are a lot of things to consider and the ramifications of not having active support going forward. Speaking of going forward, so anything that's not considered the legacy till 2018 and beyond, where Microsoft is now following a modern support lifecycle policy with GP as of October of 2019. And the difference between modern and fixed is that this is covering products serviced and supported continuously. The changes for these products might be more frequent, which means customers need to be more alert for notifications and be on the ball in case there is a significant change. And Microsoft does provide minimum 30-day notification as long as customers are making sure they're aware of it, and then that can help avoid what Microsoft calls significant degradation. They also provide a minimum 12-month notification in the event they decide to end support. So the key difference here between the fixed support and modern going forward is in the past, you had 5 to 10 years of fixed deadlines related to your support. Going forward, it could be, it has a year-to-year feel to it. Criteria for being in this policy would be you need to stay active on some sort of a service plan with your product. Must be licensed to use the product, and then also Microsoft must currently offer support for that product. And so this is a lot to digest and a lot of things to think about. And what does it really mean? Well, at the end of support, this can really impact you as a customer and impact your customers and your employees. Things like it opens up vulnerability to security problems like cyber attacks. Then you start getting into the ongoing costs of fixing things on your own. Things like updating tax tables or maintaining servers, ordering newer servers and getting managing the operating system licenses that go with it and this SQL Server and all that complexity and moving parts come with doing things on premise. And then missing out on things like Microsoft's really good at integrating features between their products on the entire stack like Dynamics and Office and Azure. So missing out on those advantages and those efficiencies to collaborate, help your people collaborate and do business more efficiently. These are things to think about when a product reaches end of support, in this case, GP. So we just touched on a lot of different things. So let's bring it back to the core topic of what is your plan for Dynamics GP? And so things we recommend considering. Remember that it's very clear Microsoft is investing less in new GP features and investing more Dynamics 365 cloud integrations. We're even at the point where some ISVs who they do offer GP solutions are starting to increase their prices for the on-prem product. This is a point where it makes sense to step back and think about things like the cost and complexity of maintaining your on-premise, things like upgrading servers, having a staff, spend the time to do that sort of thing, and then having, in some cases, having data centers or facilities in place to store these things in a secure way, and then you have ongoing costs like electricity, things like that. So think about those in terms of trade-offs with those ongoing costs compared to investing in cloud going forward, which after you get through the initial migration can be very predictable in terms of understanding the costs going forward. And then again, remember, cloud offers a lot of features that you might not be seeing when you're in on-premise world. And just a few things that I've listed here include the ability to collaborate on things like documents, the concept of centralized data, video call options with things like products like Microsoft Teams, which are packaged into certain licenses and integrate really well between the different product families. Opportunities for employees to work remotely from anywhere, any device, and then from your support team to help them remotely as well. A lot of tools that Microsoft provides to make things easier for your IT staff to administer your systems and your licenses on the back end and your PCs and the endpoints. Just a lot of things to think about in terms of pros and cons with each option comparing on-prem and going cloud. And one thing in particular we really would like to drill into is this concept of centralized data, which Microsoft calls Dataverse. It was formerly known as the Common Data Service. And really what it is it's everything is built on Azure as the foundation where everything in the cloud is housed. And then if you think about it, above that or in between that and the end customers using the service is Dataverse, which is a way to centralize, securely store and manage all of your data that's used by your business applications. Especially with the Microsoft stack, Microsoft's really good at making things integrate, centralizing data, all the way up to your end users on the front end using products like Dynamics 365 and Office 365. In between, you might have tools helping you like the Power Platform. Okay, so let's dive into the different options. One obvious option includes, I really like GP. We've had this product for a while. I'd like to keep it on premises. We're not ready for the cloud. We have no plans for the cloud. And what are my options there? Well, when I think about this, I think about the client server, the old client server model where you've got a server in the middle and all around it are PCs and devices that are attaching to that server and interacting with and getting their data and managing your environment. Possibly on a local network, possibly connected to the internet. It really depends on each customer's unique situation. The advantage of that, clearly are, you've had this product for a long time. Things are very predictable in terms of costs. You have a high level of control of things like protecting your data, protecting access and security into the system. Customizations can feel very easy because you're so familiar with the process. Had the product for so long. And those are great advantages. Some disadvantages might include limited scalability. Things don't automatically scale as your business grows. This is a process of stopping and assessing. We need to add this and grow this system and service so that it can so that it can scale with the growth of the business. It requires maintenance and update of server hardware and other things. um, and in addition, when you're in on-premise world, there are very sophisticated security concerns in terms of sophisticated attacks that can happen. Like the latest trend seems to be with things like ransomware. And then there's also concerns with business continuity. We've had GP customers who are in these situations where, for example, a customer loses their GP data, didn't have it backed up appropriately. How can they recover? Not just recover, but going forward, what is their plan for avoiding that happening again in the future? These are some things to think about as this is a great spot we're in with GP coming to end of support, the legacy products. What do we do? What's our next step? We need to think about surviving as a business beyond GP. And cloud is one of those options to think about. So a natural migration from GP into cloud would be to move from a related product to another, going from Dynamics GP into Dynamics 365 BC. Business Central is based on the original Dynamics on-prem code. So, and Microsoft worked really hard at making that migration process as seamless as possible. That said, each customer is a little different and has customizations and may need help. In fact, we recommend getting help from a trusted advisor during a migration like this. But BC has everything you need in terms of an ERP system with the financial management, project management. It's got the operations tools and abilities, supply chain management features, and not just reporting, but different tools to help you analyze and build things to look at your data. Advantages of BC Cloud, of cloud in general, being more scalable, more flexible, especially in the Microsoft stack, being highly collaborative. All these products that work so tightly together, Dynamics and Office and Azure, and Microsoft's really done a good job of making them work seamlessly. This is an opportunity to get more advanced security. And again, in a world-class data center, Microsoft provides customers all kinds of choices to make sure that their environment, their business is as secure as they need it to be. An opportunity to avoid data loss, like the customer I mentioned earlier. Think about business continuity, disaster recovery, having it in a world-class data center with lots of different backup options, disaster recovery options, keep that business going. Opportunities to your employees to work remotely, access from anywhere, any device, and your IT staff supporting them remotely as well. And this will involve a shift from investing in hardware and maintenance, those maintenance costs involved with that, to more of an ongoing services cost. That is very predictable in a lot of cases. Each customer situation is a little different, but after you get past the initial migration, things can be very predictable in cloud. And your cloud providers will, they're going to tell you about how they have high availability. Their uptime is 99.99%. That said, things can go offline. There might be a temporary time when things are not available, but remember that the part about your data will always be there. It's going to be backed up and secure. It's going to be there, protected. So, and how often does the cloud really go down? And not very often. 99.99% uptime is very good. This might raise security concerns, privacy concerns. Your IT staff might be worried about having less control over the underlying infrastructure. You have to think about things like being locked in with the vendor lock-in concept, where you're on a multi-year agreement, for example, and you don't like that agreement, or you're put onto the wrong licensing SKU. These are things, the complexity of migrating. These are things that we recommend that you engage a trusted advisor to help with, to help you avoid the unforeseen costs and expenses that go with moving into the cloud. So a third option would be sort of a Goldilocks, best of both worlds scenario where you love GP. In fact, I've said this often that GP, another name for it is great product. Customers really love GP. They're very loyal to GP. They stay on it as long as they can. Let's say you're in that situation. You're not ready to move into BC, not ready to move off of GP, but you like the idea of being more secure in the cloud. Well, this is a hybrid option allowing you to bring your own license, your GP license in this case, maybe a Windows operating system license, maybe SQL licenses, some ISV licenses. Host everything in Azure in a cloud on a virtual machine. Maybe have some storage disks, use some Azure SQL. This is a way to get you halfway there into a more cloud environment where the advantages would be, you're getting more scalable, more flexible, more secure. You have better business continuity and high availability of your data. And then you get into the cons, the same old concerns about being in the cloud. Hey, things might go offline. We're worried about privacy and security. We don't have as much control as we used to. There's that vendor lock-in problem. Again, this all invites talking to, talk to multiple partners, find a trusted advisor to help you make these decisions. It's not their first rodeo. They've seen these a lot, especially in the dynamics world. If you can find a provider like Stoneridge, we do this every day. It's our bread and butter. Let's review the customer scenarios and the options we just talked about. So option one, obviously, keep GP on premises. Option two, migrate to BC Cloud. Option three, bring your own license and host GP on Azure in a hybrid environment. So what I've done here is, just for the sake of ballpark figures, modeled out some small, medium, and large customer scenarios on GP. So for example, in the small scenario, we're assuming the GP product originally cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 for the on-prem perpetual license. They've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 users and maybe using up to 250 gigabytes of storage, and the volume of transactions would be low. In the medium scenario, maybe $50,000 system list price initially, or around 20 users, somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 gigabytes of storage, and then medium volume of transactions. In a large scenario, this GP can scale pretty large, bordering on enterprise size customers, 100,000 or more investment in your original system list price with 40 or more users, maybe a terabyte or more of storage, and have a high need for transaction volume. So what I did was took those numbers and modeled them into the ongoing costs of maintaining each one of these options. And so this excludes the cost, the one-time initial migration costs. Because each customer situation is going to be different, that would be extremely hard to model. But what I can do is give ballpark figures on in comparing these scenarios and what it might look like when you go from each one of these. For example, with keeping GP on premises, in this situation, as we talked about before, with the end of life cycle happening, with the end of support, you've got 2 to 5 years before that happens in terms of those legacy products on the fixed support plan. So in this situation, what I recommend is staying active on a service plan. And if you decide to keep GP on premises, talk to a partner to review your security risks and find ways to reduce that. Depending on what you're investing in GP, the costs are going to be incrementally higher depending on which option you choose. So a small customer is going to pay less than a medium customer and a large customer. But what you'll notice here is migrating to cloud might feel like it's a little more expensive at first. But then what I recommend is compare that with things like the additional security and data protection you're getting from being in the cloud environment and the business continuity, as well as not having to pay those on-premise maintenance costs anymore, the hardware and the administration, all those different things. There's a comparison that needs to happen. And what's more important to your organization? That's the decision to be made here at this point. Again, moving to BC Cloud, highly recommend working with a trusted advisor. We've had customers who have tried to do it themselves, go from GP into BC, with the best intentions, trying to save a buck, and it did not work out for them. A lot of them have had to come to us or other partners to be rescued. I highly recommend avoiding that. If you want to do it right the first time, can almost guarantee that will be a smoother process. In the third option, hosting GP on Azure, again, since it's cloud, it may feel like it's a little more expensive. And in the case of Azure, it could be significantly more expensive compared to the original GP model you were in. But again, you need to look at things like the security and data protection you're getting from it, not having to pay those on-prem things that costs anymore. And again, Azure can get really complicated, so I recommend engaging a trusted partner on that discussion. If you're going to bring your own license, move GP into Azure. In terms of next steps for GP, what I recommend is do your research on your own. One of the best sites I recommend is go to the Microsoft product lifecycle page. You can search by product. You can look up the different GP versions, and there's lots of links to good information there. Look at your own unique situation and compare that with your goals of where you want to be. And when you're ready, reach out and let's have a conversation. We'd be happy to talk to you about any of those different options that I mentioned earlier.